David, tell us about what you do for a living. We've got a shot here representing some of your work we pulled from the internet.
Well, I have, as you say, I've been an educator for about 33 years. I was a classroom teacher, a director of technology for a school district here in North Carolina, and was with the State Department of Education for about 6 years. For the last 13 years, a lot of times I describe it as trying to make a living without a job. I get to play. I play real hard, and I can't think of anything that I could possibly be doing that I enjoy more than basically going out and working with creative educators to try to essentially find a way to describe the education that we think our students today need. But one of the things is, as I was thinking about this conversation, I went back to my earliest days with technology. This was back in the early 80s when we had Radio Shack computers. First set of computers that I had in the school that I worked in were Radio Shacks, and there was no software for them. Back then, we just thought the green glow of those cathode ray tubes washing over our children's faces would make them smarter. And this was a good thing for me because it gave me the opportunity to teach myself how to program the computers. And the earliest programs, the earliest activities I had with computers were really about I wrote down this term, pretending for real, and the potential educational learning benefits when we can have students pretend for real. One of my first programs was had students learning math and learning how to read for inference by participating in a pretend stock market. To the internet by driving freight trucks to go pick up cargo in one state and carry it to another state. They were learning the locations, the economic value of the states, and essentially it was about students pretending to be doing something, and within the context of that pretending, they were
the question here is, when did you first get interested in virtual worlds and why?
Well, actually, this started back in the early 90s. I had just taken a job with the State Department of Education. I was one of the first people there who actually had a real account on the Internet. I had been emailing in and out of the Internet for some time, but this was the first time that I could literally log in and access computers and people all over the world in real time. That looked a lot like DOS. You typed in these incantations, and it would take you to from place to place. But something emerged in those early years that was called MUDs. Generally stands for multi-user domain or dungeon, and essentially it was based on the original adventure games on computers, where you boot up the computer, you boot up the game. It says you are standing in a room, a wall-paneled room. There's a desk in front of you. There's a book on the desk. There are drawers, and there's a door to your right and a door to your left. And then you type in little 1 or 2 or 3 word commands: go right, go left, read book, open drawer, and as you make these actions, then the original text is replaced by new text. So it's a virtual world, but it's entirely text-based. Well, in the early 90s, people started developing these things online, where it worked exactly the same way. You'd go into the virtual world, you would read a description of where you are, and then you could type in commands to go and pick up and manipulate. And if somebody else happened to be logged into that world and they happened to be in the same room, that person would become part of the description. So you had a place where people could meet in these worlds, entirely text-based, but it was much like this in that it was immersive to the point where people are dropping out of college doing these things. It was almost addictive. And what interested me about it was some work that was being done at MIT, the Media Lab, and also some work that was being done at Maricopa College in Phoenix. And there were other places that they were looking at the instructional benefits of this, the potential instructional benefits, where basically rather than having the students come in and interact in these games and in these worlds, or play quests in these worlds, you would start the world with just essentially flat asphalt, and you would ask the students, we would like for you to have a house here. We want you to build the house, and you build the house by describing it. And so the students wanted to build a convincing, compelling house for themselves, and the richness of the house depended on the richness of their description, their writing. There was some work done down in Phoenix where they took students who were very reluctant writers, students who were mostly behavior problems, who you couldn't get to write their name in a classroom. But in these virtual worlds, they wrote megabytes of highly descriptive information so that they could build virtual worlds that were as real as possible to their friends. I had a project. Our local newspaper had a MUD set up, and I had a project called the Museum of Imagination. And basically, I asked students to come in to the various rooms in the museum and to contribute their own exhibits. And basically, they had to research what they wanted to contribute, and then the richness of the contribution that they left was based on the richness of the description of that contribution. There was also a room, something called the Room of 1,000 Haikus, and students could come in and add little blocks which hung from the ceiling and add on those blocks their own original haikus. It was much like this. Again, the value of it is that you treated it like a sandbox in a sense.
Well, I know that your development background made you particularly interested and fascinated by Second Life when it first came out, and I'm sure that's served you in a very good stead throughout your career in terms of interacting with these worlds and creating content. Moving on to the PLN side of the discussion, what does your own personal learning network look like? What are your main sources of information, and how long does it take you to keep up with your networks?
I never promised that I actually keep up with my networks, did I? It's a hard question because my network looks one way one day, it looks another way another day. Yesterday, in preparing for this talk, I spent a great deal of time learning how to install animations in my avatar and gestures, and I used my personal learning network to do that, which was essentially going out and finding discussion boards where people were talking about this sort of thing. Going into YouTube and finding videos where people were demonstrating how to do this sort of thing. These were not people that I know. They weren't people that I'll ever meet in all likelihood, but they're part of my personal learning network because they are, like me, contributing their knowledge, their ideas to a larger network of people, and I'm able to tap into it. But I'd have to say that the heart of my personal learning network is my RSS reader. For a lot of people, it's Twitter. For a lot of people, it's Second Life is a huge part of the personal learning network for a lot of educators. But for me, I'd have to say it's my RSS reader. And sometimes, some days I go all the way through it. Some days I don't touch it. Some days I don't get any further than the third blog, where I run into the third blog and I just get completely caught up with the ideas that blogger is sharing, and I just never get any further. You just do the best that you can, and it's just satisfying knowing that I'm learning something new every day.
Well, thanks, David.